Hello everyone, my name is Gracian, and I am here for a little patch rundown video for the last spell. There's a new economy and panic rework patch, and it looks pretty interesting. A lot of buffs to the economy. Now, I'm not going to run through every single bullet point of what's being changed, but I do want to point out some of the biggest things. Essentially, the developers have said that gold production is too hard in the early game and too easy in the late game. So they wanted to pull some of the power of gold out of the late game, but making it more useful in the early game and easy to get to. So they've actually made the gold mine cost more expensive. It costs more gold to build the mine, but it makes more right off the bat now. However, it now takes 2 workers to perform the mine action and get that money. However, there's still ways to upgrade it, and you can now make the mine cost only 1 worker, like a lot of the production buildings have. So that's an interesting change. I think that in the long run, this won't be too hateful. It'll feel weird at first when you are struggling to get your first couple of them up. They did essentially the same thing with the scavenger camp. So again, they've increased the cost of plopping the building down and made it require 2 workers unless you have upgraded it. The other big change that they've done is the panic rework. And by the way, there is more to this economy stuff. It's down below. There's a bunch of buffs to economy, so don't get too bummed out about this increase to gold mine and scavenger camp costs and stuff, because it'll sort itself out, you'll see. So the panic rework is that they wanted to take some of the all or nothing out of it. It was a very binary system where you either had an S ranking, no panic, you get the maximum reward in an item, or you lost a ton of stuff and got a terrible score. It was hard for players to get in the middle, and it also felt bad when you did anything less than perfect. So now you still get rewards at A rank. You get a really good reward at S, but it's harder to get now. You still get rewards at A rank, and then they've decreased the penalty of ranking lower than an A, which will be quite nice. So now walls, barricades, and ruins generate a very low amount of panic. The more health a wall has, the less panic it will generate. Other defenses generate a moderate amount of panic. Structures like town buildings generate a high amount of panic, and the magic circle generates a lot of panic, and this is as it should. So this means that you are more likely to get panic increases as the night goes on, but not necessarily a lot of panic. It's not going to go from 0 to 100. I'm sure everyone's experienced that, where everything's fine, somebody sneaks in, smashes a building down, and suddenly you've lost your S. So that should happen a little less often now, but there are consequences for letting them hit the walls, but the S ranking isn't quite so important anymore. Monsters that are stunned will not generate panic once they're inside the town borders. So that's a very nice change. So if you can't kill them, you can just do like a chain stun or something and just ignore them for a turn if you can't finish them off. So again, for the rewards, S rank gives slightly higher rarity than before. A still gives you something, but it'll be more likely common through rare. Gold and material rewards rebalance to fit the scale of the updated economy. So we don't have numbers on that yet, but I'm interested to see what that looks like. I've played a lot of this game at this point, and so the numbers are, I couldn't tell you them off the top of my head, but I know like night 1 is like, what is it, like 110 gold and materials for an S rank. So we'll have to see what that looks like now, especially in the later rounds. I'd be interested to see, like, are we still going to be given 700 gold and 700 materials after night 11? I'm not sure. I'll be interested to see what the late game and the early game actually building is going to be like now with the updated resources. So here is the change log for all the rebalance stuff. This is mostly huge buffs in my opinion. Now some of this is just undoing the nerfs that we got. So like, 2 patches ago we got all these changes, and then 1 patch ago we got nerfs again, and then now they're reverting most of those nerfs. So yeah, they're huge buffs, but they're mainly just undoing the nerfs for the most part. There are some definite buffs in here though. So for instance, houses, we can no longer have 5, we can only have 4 of them now, but they cost less, and they cost a little bit more to expand the first time and less to expand the second time. So this is just a balance rather than a buff or a nerf. Production buildings have generally gone down pretty far in price. I mean, that's actually nothing to sniff at there, especially in the early nights when you can start getting those those buildings up faster for much cheaper. The price to upgrade the help amount is actually quite cheap now as well. They've lowered that. Production buildings now give +1 and +2 items from the start. That's amazing. That's so good. So now we can level up to get +3 through 2 through 5 items essentially, which is really quite nice. There's been rebalancing to some of the defenses. This one's really weird to me. I don't know why, but they've changed the price of the barricade from 7 to 8. That's gonna take a little while to wrap my head around because I've built probably 100 of these things. You know, it's 7, so it's gonna be weird to have to spend 8 on them now. So I'm curious why they did that, but we'll see what happens. I don't know if they changed the health of these. I don't remember seeing that anywhere in here. The reinforced wooden walls. The price, I think these are the yeah, they used to cost 30, which was double the 15 of the other wooden wall. Now it only costs 25, which is very interesting. And this is good because I use these actually quite a bit in lieu of stone walls, so I can still use ballistas. So this is actually quite helpful because now you can get basically a free one every time you build 5. Stone walls a little cheaper, and the health has gone up, but remember that you're going to be getting panic when they're hitting the walls now, not just destroying them. Reinforced stone wall, again, similar, decreased materials, increased health, which is great. And then the ballista has a little bit of a buff as well in terms of how much it costs. The inn, this is actually quite big. The accommodation plus, if you want more units in your group, once you want to get to that 5 and that 6 mark, it costs a lot less, which is great. Because a lot of times I find myself saving up for 1 or 2 nights to get this. Like you need the upgrade and then the cost of the hero. This may be because, you know, a patch or two ago, they increased the cost of the higher level heroes. So late game, when you're trying to get your 6th hero, this is a godsend here, having 60 extra gold after you've upgraded to pay for the more expensive heroes. So if you want to grab a level 7 hero, it's not so hateful now that you've got the 60 extra gold in your pocket. There's also been a bunch of balancing stuff for the different bosses. I don't really want to go through every single detail of these, but one of the most important ones I saw was generally debuffs to the health of the harpy, but increase the armor. Setuzia is really interesting there. She is no longer has, where is it? Invincibility phases have been removed. So if you fought her, you know that there's this frustrating part where she's just immune to damage, you have to wait around. They've removed that, but now she's also tougher to fight. So she's got a lot more health, a little bit less armor, so she's a little more susceptible to pinging her down over time, which is never something I do. I just get a sniper and just obliterate her in one turn. Not so anymore. She does have a dodge chance. I think that sucks, personally. I don't think that bosses should have a dodge chance. I think dodge should be delegated specifically to enemies that's their thing. I don't want my fight against the boss to be determined by a 1 in 10 roll. This is the only thing I really have a complaint about in the whole patch notes. This is not fun to me, but, you know, we'll see. I'm sure they have some reason for this, but, you know, this sucks. You know, you use an assassination skill and they dodge. Ugh. I mean, at least, you know, your heroes aren't going to have negative accuracy, so, I mean, for the most part, so, you know, maybe this is a fringe case. You know, if you're sending a guy after Setuzia with 9% accuracy or less, like, maybe that's your fault, but I don't like it. It feels weird. Resistance is down, block is down, armor is down, but health is way up. And then the tail similarly got a buff in health, but decrease everything else. And then when she's armored, she now, instead of being invincible, she has 6,000 health and a buttload of armor. So you can try to get through it if you want. It's going to be tough, 1,200 health, geez. And then again, same for the tail. It's got the armor and health instead of being invulnerable. The eggs have alarmingly been buffed as well. So the eggs now have armor and a little bit less resistance, but 600 armor. Oof, I don't want to have to deal with that. The wormlings themselves also got, I mean, look at this. 200 more health, 300 armor. They lowered their dodge, which is, God, thank God. I mean, 40 dodge was awful. A little more resistance, a little less movement. So they're really much more tanky than they are assassins now, at least, I guess. So, you know, and then there's some changes to the dryads, but they weren't quite as absolutely ridiculous as those Setuzia changes. The number of dryads is drastically smaller, in my opinion. That's 20% fewer dryads is kind of a big deal, but they did get more health. So, Yeah. And then a couple of interesting perk things I wanted to point out down here. The flexibility perk for switching different types of weapons has gone down in damage. It's interesting to me because it's not something I really made a lot of use out of, but apparently I should have because it looks like it might have been broken. And then bodybuilder is really interesting. This is kind of a huge buff to this. Instead of it being, so you used to have after 115 health, you would get 1% physical damage for every 15 max health. Now it's 1% physical damage for every 10 max health, and it's after 100 health. So this is actually a huge buff. You start getting the extra physical damage thresholds are starting earlier and increasing more quickly. So this is huge. And then Harvester got a little bit of a nerf. I mean, this may not be enough to kill it, but that is, 33% less bonus from this now, from 3 to 4, so could make a big difference. So I'm really excited to see all of this stuff. Satuzia looks like, I mean, at least she's not invulnerable anymore during part of it, but good God, that's a lot of health. So I'm looking forward to smashing through all of that, but yeah, that's okay. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for checking out these patch notes with me. If you haven't seen my channel, I do have a run or two of this game. I have a tutorial series of Gildenberg that was recorded before the big boss update, so please be aware that I do not fight the harpies at the end of that because I recorded it and started putting it up before the harpies came out. I actually had a 22-part series on the old Lakeburg that I was ready to put out when the bosses updated and they changed Lakeburg, and I was like, oh no. So that one's just sitting around waiting for, I don't know, some time when I want to put out an old Lakeburg series, but I do have a new Lakeburg series coming out as we speak, so go ahead and check that one out if you haven't. So thank you again, everybody, so much for listening to this patch rundown, and I will see you on the battlefield.